Okay, could it be that you're reflecting on the fact that if you have purpose or passion or something you're halfway into, it keeps you working and developing and keeps you involved and you feel you're doing something in life?
Yes, I mean to all of that. Yes, that's possible. And you know, it's yeah, it's a valid way of looking at it, and I'd agree with everything that you've said there. It does, John. It does. It can become a very powerful source of just sort of motivation if you really enjoy what you're doing. Um,
Well, if you win the lotto, you have the money and you can do, well, whatever floats your boat, the house, the holiday, the car, the whatever. But when you
yeah.
have all that done, you're still the person with the mindset you had before you
Yes.
got the lotto.
Yes. 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 Yeah. 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 Okay. Okay. Yeah. 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 So like, it's not like, yeah, it's no guarantee you're going to be happy just because you've all that money, because it is about mindset. Yeah. Absolutely.
Hiya, Owen, it's Kate here. Um,
Hi, Kate.
I don't know if you can see me.
Yeah, I
Um,
can. Yeah.
when I read that, I kind of think, because I actually found this when I went to a career coach before, that love what you do doesn't necessarily mean you might love the work, but the day job allows you to do what you love doing outside of work. So some people aren't maybe going to work in whatever they can't figure out, I don't know, that they want to work in something that's passionate for them, but whatever they do decide to do 9 to 5 enables them to follow a passion outside of work maybe.
Yeah. 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 Okay. So that's kind of what I'm pointing to. Thanks. It's. I know when I was. Um, I suppose in my early 20s, when I was in my 20s and even the early 30s, I would have subscribed to the idea that it was very important that you find your purpose in life, your passion, what you should be doing, and it became my primary goal was to do what I loved, and to find what it was I should be doing, and then do it. And it kept me motivated and it kept me moving, but it also was an incredible source of anxiety, stress, pressure, um, and it got to a point where there was always something better that I should be doing. So even when I was doing something I was good at and I enjoyed, there was a part of me feeling that this wasn't it, and that there was something more down the road. There was something else I should be doing. So I was always looking for the next thing, or the better thing. And it was only, it's only in the last decade or so that, or maybe a bit more, that I've come to realize how toxic that can be. And certainly, the more I've worked in the corporate world, and worked with groups in that area, and seeing how the concept of passion and being passionate about your work and finding your passion can be manipulated in very very subtle ways, and sometimes very blatant ways, in the world of work, to get people, to manage people, to keep people on track, to keep people in line, as it were, and to sort of breed a sense of, well, you have to bring, you have to show you have to, if you don't love your job or all this, get to love your job. It's like it becomes a peer pressure thing. um, and then there's people who are miserable, and feel and believe that they will uh, only be happy when they find the job that is the, right for them. It's kind of like, look, finding, when I find Mr. Right, or Mrs. Right, the right person, my soulmate. Now, I don't know if you buy into that. I'm sure at the end of this course now you all realize that that's utter bullshit. But it's also true for the one career. There is not one career for you. There is no such. There's no person who exists on this planet who is earmarked for one job and one job only. I mean, the concept, the idea of it is ridiculous. And yet, there's a huge amount of the self-help world and other areas of the world of work where that concept is still promoted, it's that you have to, that it's about only do what you love. Now, at the same time, well, before I go on any further, and I don't want to labor this point because I need to actually do this PowerPoint. Have you any questions on, any comments on what you're saying, on what I'm saying? Am I making any sense, or anyone have anything they want to say that's sort of shortened to the point?
Mary here, Eoin.
Hi, Mary.
I just want to sort of pick up on that, what you're saying about the manipulation, and if you have the passion. And I would have worked for a good while in the sort of the arts world.
Yeah.
And then art and things like that, and you were almost led to believe, oh, but sure, you love your job, so we don't need to pay you. We can pay you buttons because you love your job,
Yeah.
And yes, while you did love what you were doing, and maybe you had a certain talent, and I've seen a lot of very talented people, but kept manipulated down, or kept, almost kept them boxed in or something because of this idea.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's a simple and very good example of how it can be abused, this whole concept of passion and loving your work. And so so I suppose I'm setting the context for what we're going to talk about for the next just over an hour left. So that everyone wants to love what they do, and everyone wants to be in a job that they enjoy and that they love, and everyone aspires to that within reason. Now, you go to other parts of the world, and that's a concept that doesn't exist, or it's seen as unrealistic, or there are other priorities that come ahead of that, and people are just happy to have work, full stop. So it's recognizing the fact that it's not loving what you do is that's up to you. It's not necessarily, if even at all, finding the right job. It's about embracing the job you're in. It's about owning your relationship with the work you're doing, rather than being a victim to the role or the job. That you find the passion, you bring the passion to it. That's the choice you have. You don't wait for the passion to appear. It's like a relationship with anything. If you don't bring the passion to it, where's it going to come from? How's it going to happen? How's it going to pop? It doesn't happen on its own. So there's no. That's why I'm saying it's a choice. That there will be some jobs that would be hugely challenging for you to bring passion to, because it for various reasons. But generally speaking, it's the job is the job, and it serves specific functions and purposes. And if you have a job where it allows you to tap into some of your natural abilities and talents and skills, that's brilliant. That makes it easier for you to bring your passion to it. But if you don't, then you don't kind of obsess about the fact that you're not in the perfect job, because there is no such thing as a perfect job, and passion is a choice. And some days you'll have very little passion for your job, and some days you'll have lots of it. And it comes down to the mindset that you're in a moment.
Sorry.
Yes.
Sorry, Owen, Teresa here. But we did a couple of modules ago about doing work in relation to your values and So I think obviously advising people in careers, and looking at my own career at the moment because I'm at a crossroads, obviously finding work in the area that aligns with your values and that can ignite some sort of passion is preferable, though.
It is, absolutely.
The Deepak Chopra, all the 7 spiritual laws of success and all this kind of thing, and finding your alignment. And while I agree with you, I love the phrase that if you love what you do, you'll never work another day in your life.
Yeah, I'm aware of that phrase. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So I understand what you're saying, but I suppose the aim, would be to find a middle ground, wouldn't it? Find something that ignites your passion, but also you can, like, love is a verb as well as a noun, that you can actually physically, you can put your best into.
That last comment is what I would be sort of emphasizing, is that don't feel that if the job doesn't tick all your boxes, that you can't,
Yeah.
that it isn't right for you. But you do have to. It does make life is easier if you fit well into your role or into your job through your values and your skills and all. So obviously everyone strives for that. And career coaching is about helping the person find their best fit. Yeah, absolutely, yeah. But it's to be careful of that myth, I suppose, that's out there, that there's the one job for you. There's the right job that'll make you. It's kind of like tied into that. Oh, if I find the right job, I'll never have to work again. It's kind of tied into that. That's a dangerous sort of myth. There's nothing wrong to aspire towards working towards something that you would be excited about getting out of bed for in the morning, but not to get hooked on a myth that becomes an obsession, and actually you miss the whole purpose of just living in the meantime. But that's where I'm coming from. That's where I'm coming from, and I see it a lot with particularly with younger people. They're impatient to get there, and there is no there. It's kind of crazy, but we're all crazy in some way. Anyway, I won't belabor this point anymore unless anyone else wants to say anything about it. Okay, so yeah, no.
I was just going to say, it is a thing that not everyone has this passion that they want to save the world, or they want to do whatever.
No, not everyone does. No, they don't.
And they should be aware that that's a good way to be. It's just knowing how you are.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Completely agree with that. Like, I mean, there's many people who are just, the job's a job and they just get on with it. They don't give it a second thought. That's perfect. Yeah. So there's no right or wrong to any of it.
So it's just knowing which person you are.
Yeah. That's fair enough. I'd agree with that. Okay. So in terms of career planning and career management, if many of you would have done, you probably have people coming to you in pro bono coaching who would have come in relation to work and careers. So you'd be doing stuff in career in terms of, as a career coach, you'd be helping them with CV building and developing and creating their CVs, and helping them develop a strategic plan around job search, stuff around recruitment, the interview process, preparing them for interview, competency-based screening methods and processes that are involved with that, and helping them identify and go through various types of training and education options, and you being aware of and I suppose updating yourself on the latest research and the latest reports on what's coming down the line in terms of the future of work, and the skill sets that are going to be required in the next X number of years. So that's the bread and butter of career coaching, as I'm sure you'd be aware of. And through doing the coaching course, you've already got a suite of tools that you can bring to your career coaching, with just maybe a small bit of tweaking, if even that. So it was mentioned already about values, and you've done a lot of work around values. So again, that can be applied in terms of career values and helping the person identify what matters most for them in relation to day-to-day work. And there's a host of career interest inventories that you can avail of, and many of them are free online, and they're very simple to use. So you don't necessarily have to go off and do some kind of vocational assessment training, or the type of assessments that are required for, say, guidance counselors, which are usually they vary over maybe 1 to 2 or 3 days of courses. And can cost quite a bit of money, but I'd only be suggesting that type of training if you were going to set yourself up as a career coach fully. Otherwise, you don't need to do that. There's plenty of material on the internet that are good enough to use in terms of interest inventories and various types of basic sort of personality profiling tools. Now, having said that, I'm not a big fan or a big user of assessments. I think pretty much they're okay. They can be useful in terms of most people when they come for career coaching. Very often they are expecting to do some kind of paperwork or some kind of assessment of some description, and so very often you might use some form of questionnaire or assessment simply to provide them with a sense that they're getting some sort of feedback for themselves. So there's a it's not going to really be huge in terms of helping them get insights, but if their expectation is that, it can be useful just to tick that box for them in terms of feeling they get value for money. You're going to look at their their motivational skills. So what do you think that what is it you would suspect is meant by motivational skill? Any guess?
Their ability to motivate themselves to get wherever they want to go.
No.
What they like doing that's going to make them take an action, or that they.
Yeah, it's kind of yes, what it is kind of like that. Yeah, what it's it's very simply it's something you do well that you actually because there's lots of stuff you do well. Like I fill the dishwasher very well, but I don't, it's not one of my must do things every day, and yet it is one of the things I do every day. But at the same time, maybe I'm a control freak. Some people have an opinion on that, but I'm not going there. It is a motivational skill is a skill you have that actually when you're doing it is motivating. It brings you alive. It fires you up. It energizes you, right? So it's a skill that ideally you'll be able to bring to the table in terms of in your work. So because there'll be lots of skills that you have that aren't going to have the same impact. So identifying the motivational skills can be very useful as well. And there's a thing called career anchors, but again we go through that on the workshop. But it's a very useful tool to talk about. But anyway, so skills inventories, career interest inventories, their work or managerial style, maybe potentially personality profiling. But to be honest with you, all personality profiling tools are utter rubbish. They don't stand up from a psychological perspective. They're complete trash, but they're actually interesting and fun to use, and particularly in group coaching and group career development. So from that perspective, they can be useful, but from a sound scientific basis, there's none, and that's not just me saying that. But I still will use the MBTI, for example, the odd time. But and again, it's only when it's asked for. But what I find myself using more now in career coaching is it would be the, funny enough, emotional intelligence tool assessment, which I find much more useful. That's if I use anything, because usually what I use are the skills of coaching, like what you've learned, and just the art of questioning and teasing out the detail. A very good book you might want to use it's an annual publication. I think it's still coming out. I haven't gotten the recent one. Is What Color Is Your Parachute? It's an American publication, but there's excellent exercises in it. And then if you some very good websites, and in Ireland you're looking at career websites. I suppose one or two good ones. Just for courses, education is Qualifax, FAX, Qualifax.ie, and then there's Careers Portal, all one word. Again, I think it's .ie. Careers Portal. So those two will cover a huge amount in terms of, and they'll give you links to other courses as well. So what I want to sort of focus on more so is what you can do once you finish this weekend, what you can actually use with a client in terms of their own career and career development. So your role is to help someone think a bit more creatively about their potential and about their ability to achieve whatever it is they want to achieve. So mindsets, it's all about changing mindsets. So let me just share something with you very quickly. And right. So you can are you able to see what I'm looking at here? What do you see when you're looking? What are people seeing at the moment?
I can see you.
That's it, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing has changed.
No, we can see that everybody, the small picture of everybody, and there's no PowerPoint or anything.
Okay, so can you see now what you see?
Yeah.
Now, yeah.
You see YouTube, yeah?
YouTube, yeah.
YouTube, yeah.
Okay, so just have a look at this.
There's no sound.
We can't hear it, Owen.
You can't hear it.
Oh, I think we're hearing something now, are we?
Well,
No sound from
there's
the
no
video.
Okay, I'm just so you're not hearing anything when you.
No.
Oh man.
Maybe we can just watch it ourselves in our computers, though.
Oh, and do you have your earphones in?
That's hardly it, is it? I do, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll take them out and then I'll just play. Is that helping?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, will you just go back to the start?
Yeah, that's right.
Can you hear it, guys? Because I can't.
No, I can't hear anything.
I can't hear either.
Looks like it's on fast forward now. It's jumping like on fast forward and there's no sound.
So people, it's not where people aren't seeing it or hearing it, no?
No.
All right,
We
okay.
can see it, but we can't hear anything.
All right, fair enough. Forget it. So the link will be sent to you as part of the PowerPoint. But basically, it's a bunch of kids who are asked to draw pictures of firefighters, pilots, fighter pilots, firefighters, surgeon, I think, and something else. Something else, paramedic or something. But what they almost all the kids, what do you think they drew?
Men.
Male firefighters.
Yeah, man. And so they brought in to the group at the end people, four people who were in those roles, who were doing those jobs, and they were all suited up, and they were wearing the uniforms, but they were all women. And one of the comments that you could hear one of the kids saying, initially when the four ladies came into the room, was they were I think it was they're dressed up, they're all dressed up, or they're all pretending or something. It was so what it shows is the stereotypes, that the mindsets of people in terms of what men can do and what women can do. Now that has changed over the years, obviously, but there's still, you know, that video, when you watch it yourselves, clearly shows that it's kind of still deep in the psyche of the younger generations, and you know, probably not as bad as when maybe when we were all a bit younger, but it's still there. And that's part of our role as career coaches, is to identify or help a client identify their blind spots and what holds them back. Because in terms of vocational psychology, all the research has shown down through the years that the biggest block, the main limiting factor for a person in terms of progressing in their career is what do you think it is?
Themselves.
And what
Their confidence. Their confidence.
It's you could call it confidence is part of it, yeah, but it's very much just their limited thinking, their mindset. So it is totally themselves. It is never the external world, but they fixate on external stuff and assume that that's the problem and that that's the block. But it never is the block. It is always what's going on in their head. And as you know, as coaches, our job is to help them see that, so that they can unpack it and move beyond it and clear it. So that's the work in career coaching. So part of our role then is to be creative in terms of helping them be creative around around how to redefine themselves in the world of work. Now, I'm sort of making this sound very grand and big and a huge deal, but I mean, a lot of people will come to you for coaching because they want to get A. They want to go from A to B. So it's very straightforward. Put in a plan and update the CV, put in a LinkedIn profile, and that's fine. So a lot of your stuff will be sort of straightforward as career coaching. But I suppose I'm talking about more the people who are coming and they're not happy. They don't know why they're happy, and they want to change. They don't know what they want to do. Right. So I'm kind of talking about that suite of people, because if you can deal with them, then everything else is much easier anyway. So challenging mindsets is key. So there's a couple of things that I've developed over the years that I use, and I'm sure, you know, as you progress in your work and coaching, you'll develop your own tools and sort of tweak stuff. But one of the things I use is called the 1770 question. So so imagine you're the client, right? So I'd say to you the following. So we're just imagine that I can bring into the room now your 17-year-old self, right? And you have the opportunity to speak to that 17-year-old you for the next 10-15 minutes. Now, what would that conversation be like for you relative to talking to the 17-year-old? And that conversation would be around work and career and stuff like that. Will the 17-year-old look at you and say, "What the fuck happened? How did you get here? This was not the plan. This was not what I had set myself up for. What happened?" Or will they be saying, "Well done. This is super. This is exactly what I was planning for." What would that conversation be like? And how would you feel having that conversation with your 17-year-old self? Would it be one where, you know, would it be uncomfortable? Would you be defensive? Would you feel you had to justify or make excuses or explain? Or would it be much more relaxed, open? So it's part of the, now don't get hung up on the age, because 17 mightn't work for the person you're coaching. So you to gauge that with them, it might be 12. It might be, but it has to be a young age. It has to be an age where, you know, like I did have one client who it didn't work for the 17-year-old, and we had to go back to, I think it was 11, because when he was in his late teens, he was strung on drugs the whole time. So that there was no point in talking to that one. So I had to go back. So what you want to do is go back to the age where the client was able to think, had dreams, had ambitions, their thinking was not limited, it was expansive, and they didn't know enough to start limiting themselves and holding back and shutting down options. So it's getting them to reconnect with a mindset that was more dreamlike, ambition-like, you know, and it's helping them reconnect with that part of themselves that was more open to thinking just about anything. Does that make sense?
Mm.
So that's one aspect. Then you flip it to the other side and say, okay, now you've lost your 17-year-old is gone, and now we're bringing in your 70-year-old self, and you're going to have 10 minutes to chat to your 70-year-old self, right? And I want you, so you talk to them then about, so what questions you want to ask them, and you know, and again, it's in the context of work and career. So they've finished their career and it has worked out perfectly, and they're very happy, and they're looking back feeling very proud of their achievements and what they've done. So you want the client to ask them, you know, like you want them to tell you what questions they ask their 70-year-old self, and also to tell you what they suspect their 70-year-old self will answer. So that's important. You want the client to actually give you the 70-year-old self's answers as well, right? So what you're doing there, and this is a conversation that can take a bit of time, but what you're doing with the 70-year-old self is you're helping the client tap into the intuitive side of themselves, because obviously it's all makey-uppy in one sense, but by helping them helping them tap into themselves and come up with answers, you know, they're having to go beyond the logical mind, because it's very often the logical mind that has gotten them stuck and is part of the problem. So this exercise is about helping them step out of the logical mind temporarily. The logical mind or the intellectual mind is useful for when they need to put the plan in place and action it. But before they can do that, they need to get a sense of, to reconnect with their deeper self, if you like. And this is one way of doing it. Now, there's another exercise I'm going to do with you in a second that is equally, even sometimes even more effective at getting to the heart of the issue. So that's the 1770 question. Any questions on that before I move? Right.
No, sorry. Owen, so is there not a contradiction there? Maybe I'm missing something.
Yeah.
And if you're trying to get people to tune in and be intuitive and see what they like, to do with the first thing you put up, to do with, you know, love what you like, or you know, if you work, your work, you'll.
Yeah. No, there's not.
There's not.
No. But let's leave that hanging for a second, right?
Okay.
Because there's going to be an exercise I'm going to get everyone to do that will, I will hope will answer that for you as well, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So remember now, the 1770 question is just is a way of it's a way of helping a person think beyond the obvious and reconnect with I suppose reconnect with who they really, with aspects of themselves they'd forgotten about. Now, you know, they may remember that they may remember, oh Jesus, I always wanted to be a photographer. But that doesn't mean now they should go and be a photographer. It's more about what was that about and the essence of it. And it's more about them being true to themselves rather than, because what you can have is disconnect, internally being disconnected from themselves. And part of this exercise is about reconnecting or joining the dots with them. But what they do with that is up to them. It isn't about, well, that if you've identified that you've always wanted to be a dentist, well, then that's what you have to do. It's not as simple as that. But there's an exercise I'm going to do that will sort of make that even more clear. So just bear with me for another couple of minutes, Mary, on it, and we'll certainly come back to it if you want. So the other thing, there's two other. So you would have heard about another thing people have limiting beliefs around is intelligence and their own level of intelligence, and that some people will say that they were never any good in school, or they were never any good at maths, and they're not intelligent, or they're not smart. And again, it's about us as career coaches identifying the faulty thinking there. So and it's always good to have something to back up what you're saying rather than just coming in with your own opinions. So the likes of Howard Gardner and his work in the 90s, and it has evolved significantly since then, but his work on multiple intelligences is huge now, and it shows very clearly the different types of intelligence that exist. So the logical sort of mathematical intelligence that dominates our education system and is valued above almost any other level or type of intelligence is seen as being intelligent, the only intelligence, but it's only one of at least 12, if not more, intelligence types that are now acknowledged and that can be assessed. And there's plenty of examples of people who shine in different intelligences. I'm not going to go into them now, but it's just to be aware of that. And then the whole idea of like dyslexia is a big thing, and people talk about dyscalculia and dyspraxia and dyslexia, and that these are limiting, that these can be, for the individual themselves, they can take these on as stigma and let them limit themselves. But when you look at people like Matt Groening or Mick Fleetwood, and you know who Matt Groening is? No. So Matt Groening. Oh, The Simpsons. He's the writer of The Simpsons. So he and Mick Fleetwood, of course, is the drummer in Fleetwood Mac. They're two examples of people who would have been, along with Richard Branson and a few others, labelled in school as slow or having a learning disability, would have been identified as having a learning disability. So, and yet they went on, and yet their intelligence was very clear to see if you had eyes to see it. And so for example, Matt Groening, his intelligence, if he's the writer of The Simpsons, how do you think his intelligence might have shown up in class?
With creativity and humor, maybe, yeah?
Even more subtle than that, because very often it's kind of very often what you might be doing is detective work with someone, helping them find the clues that shows where their intelligence is, or their passion, or their interest, or whatever. In fact, it doesn't matter.
A lot of doodling.
A lot of doodling. He was a massive doodler. And then Mick Fleetwood, what do you think he was doing in class the whole time? Tapping with his pen.
Tapping his table.
Yeah, constantly getting into trouble all the time. But it's kind of like you can't help yourself. Your intelligence is always looking to come to the surface. It's always it's like body language. We're always giving ourselves away. Our intelligence is always coming out. It's always leaking out. But it's very clear when we're very young, and that's when we want to go and sort of look at try and identify. So everyone has a massive intelligence. Everyone is super intelligent. It's just finding out what that is, helping the person find that out. And again, a lot of stuff around that with Howard Gardner and assessments and various types of tools you can use with that. Some brilliant stuff. So it's just for your own interest to have to be aware of that and to help people get out of that bullshit thought that I'm not intelligent. Everyone is. It's mad how we hold ourselves back like that. So. Right, before we do this exercise, there's one other thing I want to tell you about and I'd like to say I had made this one up, but I haven't. It's called the monkey trap. right? So I use this with groups. I don't use it with individuals. The odd time I'll use it with individuals, but it's much better with groups. So the monkey trap is something that's used in mainly Asia, sort of Southeast Asia and places like that, where they eat monkeys. And so they have to catch them. And one of the ways they catch monkeys is now. This is what I would share with the group, right? So imagine you're in a career coaching workshop or whatever, and you're all there because you've just been made redundant. So you're fairly pissed off anyway. So you're going to be a hard group to work with. So I'd start telling you about the monkey trap, right? So the monkey trap is used in Asia to kill monkeys because that's what they eat. So they get a coconut, they tie it to the side of a tree, and they hollow out the coconut. So, and then they put into the coconut is rice. So inside the coconut is this rice that monkeys eat, and the coconut is a few feet up off the ground, but it's tied to the side of the tree, so it can't be taken away. So the monkey comes along, and he puts his hand into the hole. There's a small hole at the side of the coconut. Puts his hand into the hole, grabs the rice, but he can't get the fist out because the hole is too small for the fist to come out. So the monkey is stuck, and all the guys have to do is walk up, whack it over the head, and they've got dinner. Now, why would I share that story with a group of people in a context of career coaching?
Is it about letting go?
It is about letting go. So what would they be needing to let go of?
Well, maybe that's what they need to discuss.
Okay, very good. Yes, right. That was quick. Right. So you think about it. The rice. So what I'd be saying to people is, what's your rice? If you were to let it go, even for a moment, what could happen? What would it free you up for? What would be the thing you might be able to do or change if you let that go for a moment or a day or a week? So now some people's rice might be, I don't have enough education, or I have the wrong degree, or I'm too old, or I'm too young, or I'm not smart enough, or I don't have the right contacts, or there isn't any jobs out there for me, or the economy's in recession, or I have a mortgage to pay, or I have 14 kids to look after. Everyone has some kind of rice that they hold on to that is limiting them in some way. But when you pare it down, ultimately, the rice is what for everyone? What's the rice for everyone ultimately?
Their confidence, no?
Well, confidence
Lack
is a
of
word
confidence.
that it ultimately, yes, it's another way of saying, like, I don't want to just hold in just totally but confidence is kind of pointing to it as well. Yeah. So it's their limiting beliefs. It's their thinking. Yeah, absolutely. So ultimately, it's their totally, sorry, ultimately, it's their, now I got sidetracked there for a second. Yeah, so it's a limiting belief. So in other words, it's a way of highlighting for them that there could be something they're holding on to that's literally draining them of energy, or limiting. They're by holding on to this belief or this attitude or this way of thinking, they're blocking themselves. So it's a very good way of facilitating, of directing a conversation to the heart of the issue. And with a group, it's good because it gets the group talking, and and people start to hear out loud what other people are saying, which reassures them because they've been just thinking that themselves, and they start to see that everyone's the fucking same. Yeah. And so it's excellent for that, and it's a bit of a shocker too, because the image it brings up of a monkey getting battered isn't pleasant. So but it shocks people. Of course, you get the odd person who gets hung up on the killing of an animal, and you have to try and sort of rescue that a bit. But anyway, any questions on that before we move on to the exercise? Okay, right. So the next thing we're going to do is it's an exercise I use with individuals and groups. So you're going to need a pen and paper. And I'm going to bring you through this exercise like I would a client. Okay, so you all ready? So you need to write down your answers. So question number 1. Now, with each of these questions, they're all independent of each other. So don't feel you need to refer back to any of the other answers you've given, but you can if you want. And equally, I don't want you to think about these questions. So you write down what comes to mind as quickly as possible. So don't analyze or think too much about this stuff. Okay, so question number 1. If you could do any 3 jobs or careers or lines of work on the planet, no education or training or anything like that required, any 3, what would you choose to do? What would be your top 3? Number 2, let's say you won the lotto. I don't know, you won the Euro Million, so there's 130 million in your bank account. So money is not really an issue. But you want to work, you want to continue to work, and that's a given. So, but now you have all this money. So, what would you choose to work at? What would you do? Again, it could be anything. Number 3. You have a year to live. And for that year, you're perfectly healthy. And on the last day, you drop dead. So you're perfectly healthy for that final year. And you have to work. You have to work for that year. But it's your final year. What would you choose to work at? What would you do? Question 4. If you're told, look, just pick something, do something with your life, and choose a career, and when you choose it, you're going to be a massive success. It's guaranteed. You just need to pick something. Knowing that you're going to be a massive success, what would you choose to do? Number 5. You have access to a time machine, and this time machine you can only use once, and you can only go back in time. So you can only go back in time to make one change to your career, your education, training. That's it. So if you can go back in time to make that one change, what's the one change you'd make in relation to career, work, education, training? What's the one change you'd make? And then finally, number 6. If you could only use one of your skills in work, regardless of the work, for the next 5 years, for example, right? You're in a job, I don't care what the job is, but if you could only use, all your other skills had to be dumped, and you could only keep one skill, what's the one skill you would absolutely need to keep to stay sane in that job?
Is that the job that we would want to do, or the job we're in now?
Doesn't matter. I'm not interested in the job. So it's more, I'm more interested now in just what's the one skill you would want to keep in whatever job you're going to be in for the next 5 years.
Okay.
So there's 6 questions. So I would do them. I would, generally speaking, with an individual, if I was doing this on a one-to-one, I'd have a flip chart and I'd write up I'd write their answers up in a flip chart. So now you have your answers written. The first question I'd be saying is, so have a look at your answers and what do they tell you? What's coming up for you? Tell me what your sense of your answers are. So I'm going to get someone to volunteer their answers so as we can go through this a bit, because now I don't have pen and paper. Heck, that wasn't very clever. Anyway, I'll try and remember it. So I probably won't remember it though. Feck. All right, okay. Who wants to volunteer their answers? Oh, everyone's looking away from the screen now. Jesus, like in the group classrooms, same stuff. Everyone looks down. No one wants to volunteer their answers.
Okay, I'll volunteer if nobody else will. Does
Good.
anybody else want to do it?
You're pulling back on it already, Helen.
No, that's okay. I don't mind if nobody else wants to do it.
Right. So we'll see what we'll get you. Okay. Thanks, Helen. So your question 1 was the top 3 jobs. What were they?
Okay, the first one was a travel writer.
Yeah.
The second one is a life coach, and the third one is a charity fundraiser.
So travel writer, life coach, and charity fundraiser. Okay. So then number 2 was the lotto. What was that?
Travel writer.
Okay. Number 3 was the year to live.
I went more for the charity fundraiser then, if I'd only 1 year to try and sort of do as much good as I could.
Okay. Number 4 was the guaranteed success.
The life coaching.
Okay. And then the time machine.
The one thing I would change is to have studied something more to do with psychology earlier in my life, because I went down, I was a maths teacher and I went down that route and only got interested in sort of the whole psychology side of things later on.
Okay, and what difference do you think that would have made to your career if you've done that?
I think it would have sent me down a sort of a counselling, coaching route a lot sooner in my life. I'm 54 now and I'm only discovering life coaching now.
Okay, so you right, fair enough. And then the skill, number 6, what's the skill?
Interpersonal skills, talking to people.
Talking to people. Okay, right. So okay. So you had imagine they're all up in the flip chart. So you're looking at your answers. So like what I suppose do your answers tell you first of all about your situation, about your your current sort of station in life, career-wise?
They tell me that I want to do something that's doing good for people, and I want to have fun as well, so I want to do traveling as well.
Yeah.
But that if I had a year to live, that I want to do something where I'm doing good for people. But while I'm talking, I'm thinking the life coaching could be as much help to people as a charity fundraising if I had only a year left.
Yeah.
And if I make enough money, if I'm hugely successful at the life coaching, make enough money, I can do all the traveling I want.
Yeah. Okay. And it sounds like so like your time machine answer about going back and doing the psychology earlier. It sounds like you're addressing that now anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. And the skill of talking. So that's something. So that sounds like that's a skill you've been using pretty much all your working life, given that you're a teacher, and that the careers you're sort of honing in on now would capitalize on that as well. So it's alive in you throughout your career, really, hasn't it been?
Mm-hmm. And I've been doing career guidance for a lot of years now too. I stopped teaching a long time ago, but every job I've been in has been talking to people. But now my job has become much more IT based, and I hate it. I just hate working from home and having to use WebEx and everything instead of really sitting talking to people. So
yeah, I know. Yeah, tell me about it. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so you're So in a sense, so the travel writer, the fundraiser, and the coach. So the three of them kind of feature down through the program, down through your answers as well. So there's a consistency there, but the fundraiser comes up if you're running out of time, and it's obviously that's So you see the first just to explain these answers. These questions rather, the first question of the top 3 jobs, that's really about helping a person to sort of just it's setting the scene for the rest of the questions. It's getting the person to think outside the box. It's kind of jolting them to out of their habitual way of seeing themselves. So it's setting them up for the rest of the questions. The question 2, which was the lotto, that's if you let go of the rice of money. If you let go of that being a block, what would you do? If you didn't let money block you, I think as a limiting factor, what would you do? And then number 3, about a year to live, that's about values. What really matters to you work-wise in terms of what are the values, where do your values or how do they show up in the world of work? Number 4 is if you're afraid, if you didn't fail, if you're guaranteed success. So in other words, number 4 is if you weren't afraid, what would you do? If you didn't let fear hold you back, what would you do? Time machine question is about regrets. So the regrets, we all have regrets if we look back at our past. We all wish there was something we didn't know. Maybe some people mightn't have any answer to the question 5, that they're happy with the path they've taken, the decisions they've made, and then that's fine. That's grand. You don't have to have something you need to change or tweak. But if you do, this question is about getting that out into the open and doing one of 2 things with it. Fixing it, in other words, addressing it, a bit like what Helen has been doing now, or making your peace with it and letting it go. Because maybe it's not something you can do anything about now, or maybe it's not something you are interested or prepared to do anything about now. So let it go then. Stop beating yourself up about it. Stop carrying it around as something niggling in the back of your mind and draining you of your own self-confidence and your self-belief. And then the last question is really just a reinforcer of questions 2, 3, and 4. It should be a skill that becomes, it's because every job is simply just a bag of skills. So it's never about the job. It is about the skills. Go back to the motivational skills we talked about. So for Helen, the talking is very much a motivational skill. And that's what you're identifying there is a key motivational skill. And it will be reflected in one or more of the jobs they've listed above. Now, the jobs that were listed above, for Helen, for example, the career coach or the life coach and the charity fundraiser and the travel writer, they're job titles. So they're doorways into what maybe Helen could look at in terms of work-wise. It doesn't mean she needs to become one of those. That's not what this is about. But she might and she might not. So it's more about finding out what these answers mean to her and where it goes. So each answer is a doorway into Helen, and we go through each door. So I'll give you 2 examples of where it can go. I was stunned at myself. I did this with a client a while ago, and she said she came to me saying, I don't know what I want to do. I'm not happy in my job and I want to change my job, but I don't know what I want to do. So within 10 minutes of the session, we did this questionnaire, and all of the answers, apart from even 5 was related to it, was primary teacher. So I looked at the flip chart, and I looked at her, and I said to her, okay, you need to tell me why you're here, because you just told me you don't know what you want to do, and clearly you do. It was blatantly obvious, and it's like she got found out, so her whole energy changed, and she said, what she said was, yes, yeah, I know, but how am I going to tell my mother? I can't leave the bank. She'll go crazy, leaving a good job that I've been in for years to train as a primary school teacher. I can't tell my mother. And the coaching ended up being around having that conversation with her mother. She knew what she wanted. But if I hadn't have done that exercise, we could have been running around in circles for God knows how long, because she was just bullshitting herself. She was hiding from herself. She was afraid. But this called her out immediately. And that's the beauty of it. So you don't know what this exercise is going to do, but it always does something. And that's what I find about it. It's fascinating. So don't get hung up on the answers. And now another example is I had this guy in who came up with answers that were they were mixed, huge variations in the answers he came up with. And he was what was he? He was an IT specialist, I think. But I think it was software. But what he really wanted to be was a mechanical engineer or an inventor. And he also, if money wasn't an issue, his answer for if money wasn't an issue was he'd set up his own window cleaning business. And he said every Saturday night himself and his buddy would go drinking, and they would plan what we're going to do with this window cleaning business. Every fucking week they were doing this, talking about the window cleaning business they were going to set up together, and they were doing this for years, and they never did any of it. But it was still going around in his head. So we talked about that and how he could start off small himself, get a bicycle and a couple of buckets, and work his way to getting those mechanical lifts and making it more professional. So he could start at weekends, and then to become a mechanical engineer stroke inventor, he'd need to go back to university and get a different degree, and he wasn't prepared to do that. So he knocked that on the head. So, and his skill that he loved most was problem solving, the ability to problem solve. And his regret was that he'd go back and to college. He'd go back to his leaving cert and he'd put down robotics and engineering instead of IT. So you think, God, this guy's a bit all over the place, and he may just he has and he came in to the session quite low and depressed, and he'd been sent by his girlfriend, so he didn't even really want to be there. But anyway, this exercise. So again, I did this exercise, and all the answers were up in the worksheet or were up in the flip chart. And what came out of that session was a very energized and enthusiastic man who left feeling that there was light at the end of the tunnel. Not that he was going to be an inventor, not that he was going to set up the window cleaning business, although he saw through it and he said, I'm going to talk to you, man. I'm going to challenge him on it. I'm going to knock this on the head one way or the other, he says. But what he also committed to doing for himself was he had forgotten two passions in his life that he had let go of because he had got so fixated on being depressed in his job. He hated because he had become so obsessed about being unhappy in his job. He had let go of his passions, and two of his passions came back into his awareness through this vehicle that we had, the flip chart answers, and the conversation that came out of that was facilitated through the answers. And the two, one was photography, which didn't feature anywhere in the answers, but photography was something he had loved doing when he was younger, and he'd forgotten all of it. He'd forgotten about it. But another passion that he was shocked he had forgotten about, and he had actually he'd walked away from it about a year earlier because he had walked away from a lot of stuff, but this had been a lifelong passion of his, and it was stock car racing. It was car racing, and doing the car racing, he was doing the mechanical engineering stuff on the track with the cars, and he had walked away from that because the depression had been robbing him of feeling alive everywhere or anywhere, and he was putting it down to being the job. So what this did was reconnect him with the passions which weren't the job, but they were in his life, and he'd forgotten them and let them go. And the job and all the negativity, the negative thinking around it had become all consuming for him. So this kind of pulled him back out of his head and made him sort of cop on to what he had done to himself. The job hadn't done it to him. And he saw that. And that's where that conversation took him. So it's another example of what this can do. So I suppose I don't want you to get too hard. And then there's people who have struggled, like you probably all were able to answer the questions because you've done a bloody life coaching course, and the questions are familiar to you because you would have come across them in various places, like Brian Tracy's question: if you can fail, what would you do? You know, she's done. All I did was bring them together into a format that actually ramps up or sort of leverages the client a bit. So you will get people who will struggle to answer some of the questions, but even the blank spaces where there's no answers, that's kind of an answer. You can get them curious about why are they struggling to answer that, or well, you know, it's don't get stuck because they're stuck. Any questions?
Oh, and I had a question. What would, because this came up in one of my pro bono coaching sessions, how would you approach it if your client is in maybe a bit of a financial difficulty and the job that they say they hate, and I know you can dig into the kind of mindset of that, but the job they say they've been wanting to get out of for years, you know, is paying the bills, and they actually couldn't afford to do whatever it is they would really love to do.
Yeah.
How would you approach that if money really is the rice, I guess, that they can't let go of?
When you say that the money is that they need the money that they're getting from the job, is that what you mean?
Yeah, like they actually can't afford not to do the job they're in, like they have a heavy mortgage or something like that.
Okay, yeah, right. Well, what are you asking me? What would I do?
I'm asking you how you would approach that, because I would, when that situation came up in my coaching session, I felt a little bit like I couldn't really see around the money myself, actually.
Yeah, no, well, it's not your job necessarily to see around this. I mean, you can't. You're not a problem solver for them. So I would do that exercise. I would do the exercise we've just done with them. You know, like what I want them to do, where I need them to go in their own heads, is into that space where they're free of that the financial burden for the moment. You want them to talk to you and think from that place where they're not being burdened by the finances, even though it may be the case at the moment, because you don't know what's going to come from that. Just like that guy I told you about who reconnected with stuff that didn't feature on the answers list, but they came out of the conversations that he'd written down in the answers. So you want that client to sort of think extremely creatively and expansive. Let her go wild, or in terms of the thinking. So have fun with it, rather than trying to work through the problem of the money, because that all you're doing there is reinforcing the thinking, and that is like it's kind of like saying that the thinking that got her there isn't going to get her out of there, you know. So we need to get her into new thinking that helps her see her situation in a very different light. And it's not and what she might see is she doesn't need to leave her job. She can start doing something else on the side, or I don't know, but and I don't know, but that's what I would be doing, and that would be the approach I'd be taking. So I wouldn't care that I wouldn't be. You know, I'll say it this way: I don't care that she needs the money and that she's stuck. She's there for a reason. You know, at the very least, you say, okay, well, what do you want to do then?
Yeah.
Now, what are your options then? So you're stuck. Is that what you're telling me? All right. Well, then what? Now what? So what are you going to do about that? So challenge the person in a supportive way. Challenge them out, and this exercise challenges them. But equally, you can be challenging in that way, in being direct, in terms of you're not going to take their negative thinking as a reason to just stop. Like they are. You say, you know, so you have to push them or encourage them past that negative thinking that they habitually get tripped up by and get stuck in. Whereas our job is to help them step over it or through it, even just temporarily. And so I'd be doing that. Yeah, okay, but so what? I mean, just tell me more. What would you like to do? Or where would you like to go? Or how would you like it to be? Or what are your options? Okay, so you keep saying it's impossible, it's not possible. Well, why are you here then? Should just accept it then. What about accepting it? I'd be, you know, a bit provocative, but once you have the rapport, you can do that.
Yeah.
I'd be challenging them because you will get people who are just. I'm not saying your client is, but some people who just want to come and moan, particularly the pro bonos. I mean, they'll just come and moan, but they won't do anything about it. So they need to be challenged to do something about it. Otherwise it's just a knocking shop for not knocking shop. It's just a place where they want to moan, and you are not a moan. You're not there to receive moaning. You don't put up with that crap. Does that answer you in any way?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Particularly the piece around just challenging them, like, okay, well, why are you here? Like,
yeah. Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions, folks?
This is a very practical question, Eoin. So that was amazing. I thought that was really powerful, but I forgot to write down the questions. So I know. So will we get a list? Can we get
Yeah.
They're really helpful.
They're in the PowerPoint that I have, and I think Adrian wrote a message there saying they're in the manual.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see that. Thanks, Adrian. Okay, perfect.
He's also just sent the PowerPoint by email.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot. I've got to turn on the camera. Yeah, he's just sent the.
Oh, has he? Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Brilliant. Yeah. Okay.
Sorry.
It's on page 106 if you want to check it out.
Okay, 106.
Yeah.
So it's that exercise is I use it with groups and individuals, and I'm always amazed at what comes out of it for people. But it's.
I think it does rely though on people being honest.
Oh yeah, well of course, yeah.
So you can challenge them with, well, why are you here? And
yeah, absolutely, yeah. Actually, going back to your question, Mary, does this answer? Have we addressed your earlier question in any way?
Yeah. I think I'm starting to clear it. And I'd seen that before about if you want to be happy for a year, etc., won the lottery.
Yeah.
You want to be happy for life, love what you do. And I always sort of would have challenged that myself because I thought, well, if I won the lottery, that would give me a lot of freedom to go and do what I want to do. You could, so can people not see that? Well, if they won the money, and that comes in that question, if money wasn't an option, well, what would you do if you won the lottery? But I can see it that it is within people that it's about them. Like I would think back to in Derry City. I live in Donegal, very close to Derry City, and I remember the factories just when they've been closing and all the girls coming out of the factories. Now those jobs, if you were to talk to people now, are going into a factory and doing that type of work, but they all talk so much about that and how happy they were.
Yeah.
It was all the stuff that they done then at the weekends or nights or the things, and it was also the communication they had and what it allowed them. It wasn't about the job at all.
No.
Camaraderie.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's really what I was saying in a very long-winded way at the beginning of the session. It's never about the job.
No.
It's about the individual. It's always about the person and their thinking and how they and the relationship to themselves relative to everything else. And it's mad, but normal. Any other questions about anything?
So could I kind of have, maybe it's two different questions. So one is when I think about like doing leadership coaching, right?
Yeah.
And so this is a really amazing exercise that you can do very quickly to help just very quickly raise people's awareness as to why they're there for career coaching, right?
Yeah.
So, and my original question was going to be how can you apply this example to leadership coaching? But maybe it's more of, and that is the question. Sorry, Eoin.
How can you apply this to leadership coaching?
It's like, so leadership obviously is in the area of careers, as in it's the person's role, it's their job, it's often what they're passionate about or they're not. But to bring out, that's the 6 very simple questions there that bring out kind of why the person's there, or so, could you apply that to leadership or coaching or?
Well, you could, of course, and you could tweak it. You can tweak it any way you want. You could tweak that. You could tweak that in such a way and apply it to relationship coaching. like what Adrian was talking about afterwards. You know, I haven't done that because, yeah, for many reasons. But anyway, but you absolutely, it's very versatile. So you could use it as it is there now for leadership coaching, and it frames the conversation, you know, in relation to leadership and how the person is leading themselves and their team in the company, and, you know, and if they're in the right, and are they being true to themselves relative to their position and their role and all. So it's very applicable to that. You know, I can't think of anything that where it wouldn't have a role to play, you know, in some way, shape, or form. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I suppose my question was more because I would be concerned that all of a sudden they'd say they don't want to be a leader. But the point is, that's the point, right? So that might come out of that type. They might end up saying they want to be a whatever. Yeah. Okay, I suppose that's the point. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's about being. It's helping them remember their authentic self.
Brilliant. Yeah.
You know,
okay.
So yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Deirdre. Any other questions? Or comments, or thoughts, or reflections, or insights, or realizations, or blinding revelations? Anything? No, nada, niente. Yeah.
I had a bit of a revelation. I feel like I need to go back to college.
Why? For what? To do what?
I wish I'd majored in HR and not majored in accounting and finance.
Oh, right, okay. A bit of a difference there, yeah.
You know, I don't use my accounting and finance. I love an Excel spreadsheet, but if I could go back and do HR in the morning, I'd do it.
Yeah. It's very doable. HR is very doable. You can do it part-time and everything. So it's you could do it at night, no problem.
Look, that's what I'll be doing for the next 8 months, guys.
Yeah. Go to CIPD.co.uk or NCI, National College of Ireland. That's all HR and lots of stuff there. Never too late. Anything else? No? So, anyway, you have the PowerPoint, you have the notes, and if anyone has any questions around any of the stuff moving forward, Adrian will give you my email address. You can contact me and give me a shout. I'm happy to answer any questions or help out in any way. And I might even see a couple of you on the advanced workshop whenever that is in November, I think. So happy virtual final weekend. It must be a pain in the ass having to do it at the last minute like this. It's a kick in the teeth. But anyway, the very best of luck with it. And I wish you all well, and hope to maybe cross some of your paths in real life soon. Okay, thanks, Adrian. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Owen.
So much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Owen. Claire just texted me. She said the dishwasher needs to be filled.
Ah, feck off. Good night. I'm going back to bed.
My mother-in-law has the same thing, you know, with the dishwasher. Is that something that can be coached?
Not your mother-in-law. No. Get someone else to do it.
You're not doing that right. And I was like, okay, I won't do it.
Okay, guys, we'll take a break. Thanks, Owen. We'll take a break now, and we'll come back for 11:30 and knock off your mics and your cameras. I just sent on Owen's career coaching PowerPoint to you guys. Okay, so we'll see you at 11:30.
Thank
Enjoy
you.
your cup of tea.
See you well, guys.
Bye.